Miguel Santos had never seen a stage that big before the bright overhead lights, the roaring crowd, the cameras pointed directly at him. Everything felt unreal, almost like he was walking through someone else's dream just minutes before stepping out. He stood backstage gripping the thin strap of his old guitar so tightly his knuckles had turned pale he closed his eyes and whispered a name under his breath, the name that had become both his strength and his wound, Mama. This is for you at only 17, Miguel had already lived through more heartbreak than most adults ever would. He grew up in Quezon City, in a tiny apartment overlooking a crowded street lined with tricycles, food stalls, and children chasing each other barefoot. His mother, Alona, worked every possible job just to keep them afloat. Street vending in the mornings, laundry work for neighbors in the afternoons, and cleaning offices late at night. She never complained. Instead, she would hum little melodies as she worked. Melodies that slowly shaped Miguel's world. Music became his comfort, his escape, and eventually, the only way he knew how to express the emotions buried inside him. But everything changed 2 years ago. On a rainy night when Alona collapsed on her way home, the doctors said her heart had been weak for years, and the stress of constant labor had taken its toll. Miguel remembered holding her hand in the hospital, praying harder than he had ever prayed in his life. She tried to smile through the oxygen mask and whispered, "Anak, keep singing. Okay, don't stop. Promise me." Those were her last words. The next morning, she was gone. Since then, every song Miguel sang carried her memory. Every lyric felt like a conversation he could no longer have. Now, standing backstage at Star Voices Philippines, one of the biggest singing competitions in the country, Miguel felt his heart pounding. In his chest, this was his shot, the moment he could honor his mother, share her story, and maybe, just maybe, change his life. The host announced his name, and he stepped onto the stage. The crowd quieted as they saw the thin boy with gentle eyes and a guitar that looked older than him. The judges smiled politely, not yet knowing what was about to happen. One of them asked, "Miguel, what will you be singing tonight?" He swallowed hard. "A song I wrote for my mom. It's called Mama Don't Go." The audience let out a soft gasp. The judges leaned forward, and then Miguel began. His voice was soft, at first trembling slightly, like fragile glass, but the moment he reached the first chorus, something shifted. His tone deepened, warmed, strengthened. It was no longer just a performance. It was a plea, a memory, a confession of pain and love. "Mama, don't go. I'm still learning how to breathe without you. If you hear me now, please know, your love is still the light I'm running to." The auditorium fell into complete silence. Not a whisper, not a cough. It felt as if time itself had paused to listen. People in the back row wiped their eyes. The camera director signaled a close-up, capturing the wet shimmer in Miguel's eyes as he sang the next verse. What no one knew, not the judges, not the audience, not even the producers, was that this wasn't just a tribute to his mother. It was the first time Miguel had ever sung this song in public. He had written it alone in his room on the anniversary of her death, staring at the one picture he had of her smiling. He never planned to share it, but something inside him whispered that maybe, if the world heard her story, his mother's love could live on in more hearts than just his. As he reached the bridge, his voice broke, not out of weakness, but out of overwhelming truth. "You held me when the world felt cold, gave your warmth, gave your soul, Mama. I'm still your little boy." Even if you had to go, one of the judges, a well-known singer from the United States, who had joined the panel for the season, pressed her hand against her chest as tears streamed down her face. The other judges were visibly moved, their expressions softening with empathy. Many in the audience cried quietly. Others didn't bother hiding it. But then, something completely unexpected happened. A woman from the crowd suddenly stood up. Miguel noticed her only because she was crying so hard she had to cover her face with both hands. When she lowered them, he saw that she was probably in her late 50s, old enough to be his mother. She whispered loudly, "Anak, you sing like you're carrying a whole world inside you." Her words broke something open in the room. People nodded. Some reached for each other's hands, strangers comforting strangers. It was no longer a talent show. It had become a moment of shared humanity. Miguel finished the last line with a trembling whisper, "Mama, don't go." The final note hung in the air like a soft prayer. Then came the roar. The entire audience leapt to their feet. The cheers were deafening. Some judges stood slowly, overwhelmed, wiping their eyes as they clapped. Others didn't even try to hide their tears. It was the kind of standing ovation performers dream of their entire lives. But Miguel didn't smile, not yet. Instead, he looked up, toward the lights, hoping somehow she could see him when the judges finally spoke. Their voices were shaky. One said, "Miguel, that wasn't just a performance, that was love, that was loss, that was the reality of so many people who've had to say goodbye before. They were ready. You touched every soul in this room." Another judge leaned in closer. "I lost my mother last year, and when you sang, it felt like she was here." "Thank you." Miguel didn't know how to respond. He simply nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. "The American judge spoke last. There are singers," she said softly, "and then there are storytellers. You, young man, are the second kind. You didn't sing to impress us. You sang to heal us." As he walked off the stage, something extraordinary happened. The woman who stood earlier stepped into the hallway near the stage exit. She hesitated, then approached him with gentle steps. "Hi," she said softly. I don't know if I should say this, but your song reminded me of my own son. He passed away 5 years ago when you sang. It felt like he was speaking to me. Thank you for giving me a piece of him back tonight." Her words stunned Miguel. Without thinking, he reached out and hugged her. It wasn't a polite or awkward hug. It was the kind where two people recognize each other's pain, even without words. "Thank you," he whispered, for listening. That embrace created a ripple through everyone nearby. The crew, the contestants, the staff. In that one moment, grief wasn't something that isolated people anymore. It became something that connected them. Miguel didn't win the show that night, but something far more important happened. Millions who watched around the world felt something awaken in their hearts. The video of his audition went viral in the United States, shared by people who had lost mothers, fathers, children, or loved ones they still wished they could speak to. His song, raw and unpolished, reminded them that love never really leaves, it simply changes shape. Weeks later, a producer from the US reached out and offered to help Miguel record Mama, Don't Go professionally. Miguel agreed, but only on one condition: that part of the proceeds go to supporting single mothers in the Philippines who were struggling just the way his mother once had. The producer agreed without hesitation, and that is how a boy who once sang alone in a tiny room slowly began changing the lives of mothers and children he had never met. Miguel realized something profound then: grief doesn't end, but it can transform. It can become music. It can become kindness. It can become a bridge between strangers. It can become a light that guides others out of their own darkness. And somewhere, somehow, he felt his mother smiling, not because he stood on a big stage, not because millions heard his voice, but because he had kept his promise. He kept singing. He didn't stop, and through his music, she never really left.